Hello and welcome back to Jared's Humble Maps. Here we have another time-lapse video of a final throne room, something that's been remade after being destroyed by the big bad evil guy. This video I will be speaking to some of the process Psy, and a lot of it will just be some music, background, time-lapse stuff just to help get through. I'll jump in and out with some of the details that I think are a bit more prominent or something that I thought was a bit more clever. This map is near and dear to my own heart as it is the final combat map for my D&D campaign, and excited to share how I went through the process for this with you guys. So using the line tool, I've selected dungeon stairs and I'm drawing it down, and then I want to create kind of a semicircle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that point to halfway to where that circle is going to be. I'm going to click and hold my left click on my mouse, and then I'm going to drag it to the right. That's going to form half of the dome, and then I'm going to connect it again, making that it's equal on both sides, and then finishing it going up. That way you just get a really smooth, rounded staircase, which is usable in lots of different areas. And now we're just finishing off some of the railings just to help it feel like this place was actually being lived in. I don't know what the building code back in medieval times were, but I'm sure railings were still needed, so just adding some of that. And then creating the desecration of it. So here I'm using cliffs to symbolize where the ground has fallen away, where this tile is being destroyed. And the premise around this map, at least for myself, is that this astral plane is trying to merge with the material plane. The villain has some grand ideas of how to create a better world, classic bad guy stuff. And this is the center point, the focal point where the two realms are competing for each other, and so we're seeing the world itself start to fall into the astral. I know, pretty cool. My idea. So lots of other variations you could do is you could have lava, you could have poison, acid, ice coming from these. So also very much the same techniques to create this idea of destruction or just different elements taking place. So here we are just adding lots and lots of rocks. Debris, as again this throne room is kind of in the process of being destroyed. The more rocks you add, I find it's really hard to overdo it, because when you're in caves, when you're in an area of destruction, there is rubble beyond what you can see. So if you're ever trying to break up open space, if you ever you don't know what you want to add but something's missing, just start with rubble. Start with the broken wood stamps. And another one also is just the blood stamp, changing it to the color of either water or mud. Goes a great way of breaking up kind of that area or making it seem dirty. Here another cool tip is I wanted the staircase to look like it is falling apart, so what I did was I added a clip mask to the object layer, and then I added stone around where it would be, and then I sent that stone to the back layer. You can watch that again in slower motion to see exactly what I mean. I will also have another short video speaking to that process as well. So I threw the stamps down to the background layer. I then painted over it, so now here I'm doing it again in greater detail. So it looks bad now, but I'm just trying to get it so that the fuzziness covers all of the stamp, and then I'm going to take all of those standing stones, send it to the background, and then boom, it looks a bit more finished or a bit more distinct. Adding in this astral background, and it's a throne room, so just changing up some of the center tile, I spend a bit of time trying to find the difference and matching the colors between the two. And a lot of it is just, I put a tile right next to it, and then I change it slowly, and then I change it slowly, and then I change it slowly until I'm happy that it matches. And now I'm just running around the edges, and then I will do larger swaths. When I'm making a map, I find that the textures and the colors of the ground make up about 70% of the stress and about 70% of the time it takes. A lot of times I cut from the video how many different other styles of grounds that I made, and here I actually jumped through quite a bit where some of that ground textures I went back and added cracks, and here just to symbolize depth, mystery, and just the sense of dread, I'm adding lots of these clouds. I'm changing the hue from purple to a bright white to the dark black, just to give the sense that, you know, it's dusty, something is happening, it's eerie, it's looming. And I sprinkled it in everywhere where kind of this astral starts coming from it. And then it also works well when you're adding layered lights later as stamps. They reflect off of the fog or the smoke token as well. Here I jump into how I do shadows. Again, I'm going to have a video coming out shortly where I just speak to that, but I'm using the draw shape tool, changing the contrast to... well, I don't actually change the contrast. Changing the brightness to about 60% opacity, starting with a black line, filling with black, and then I always hit the blur pretty high. I like this tool because it also covers the objects, makes it feel like the depth is covering not just the texture on the floor, but the objects on the map. So I've decided that wherever the astral is coming through, that is where I will have light, and then coming from the main entry at the bottom here. So anything to the sides of a 360 approach of an astral pit, there will be a shadow. And then as always, I always recommend adding shadows to any wall just to help create the image of depth. So even if it's not a tall wall, or even if it's not something that would be reflecting light, just add a little bit of darkness just to further encourage the mind to realize that this is a hard wall, it's not just a half wall or something like that. And now we see just how even 5 to 10 light stamps can completely change what the map looks like. So really happy with kind of these changing the hues to a purple and then splashing them all over. After I've added the lights, I then do like to go back and add more shadows. This layer of shadow, I have a lower opacity. It helps break up some of the harsher shadows before, and it also just changes up the color of the map, so it's not just one gray across, which is really easy and for the mind to kind of see it as repetitive, and I actually really hate when that happens. So I like to add shadow just to symbolize, could be dirt, slight textures of paint and erosion over the years, just to break it up. Here, after adding the lights, it didn't change the background, which was a little unfortunate and not truly sure why. However, I went back with the line tool just with a purple and traced over these the background rocks that we had added earlier, and then I play around with that a bit, blurring it out, changing opacity, making them dark, just so it blends in a bit more. Added some to the stairs up and down just to help kind of even out the harsh colors there. And enter more rocks. So these ones are floating off in the astral, adding more fog and smoke just to make it feel more eerie. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. Thank you for taking interest in at least the time lapses or into the process of how I've been doing it. My imagination is not limitless. So if you have something in mind, if you have a battle map or a feature that you want to see how I make it or how I would approach it, please leave a comment below. I'm happy to then release it or publish it onto the Inkarnate page. A way of you saving, you know, $50 for some of those high quality battle maps, and then it gives me something to make and then something to talk to. So this has been Jared. Thank you for watching. See you next one.